And here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Creating Lasting Change. I am Trisha Dyka, and I am here today with Melissa Amos, and we're going to be talking today about intuitive development. So I'm going to quickly introduce her, and then we are going to jump in because I'm excited to chat about intuitive development because I think it's so important in our daily lives to actually be utilizing this tool that we have that's within ourselves. So let's get rolling. Melissa Amos is a spiritual mentor dedicated to helping the spiritually curious unlock their intuitive and spiritual potential. Through her membership community, soul space, training programs, and private mentorship, Melissa guides her clients into embracing their true selves, break free from past limitations, and create fulfilling lives. Melissa's mission is to empower others to step into their intuitive and spiritual superpowers. Her best-selling book, Memoirs of a Mystic in Training, takes you on a journey through the interconnectedness of life and the magnificent messiness that it means to live a life led by soul. Well, I can understand and relate to this messiness. So
That's definitely
welcome.
easy, is it?
It's that's actually it's a great way to put it. It's
Yeah.
a magnificent messiness, and yet it is soul-based, and I'm really excited to dive into this. So welcome. Please give a little bit more information, and then let's start talking about intuitive development.
Okay, so for me, I kind of entered the spiritual field when I was in my late 20s. Like as a kid, I'd always my grandma was a hypnotherapist, so I'd always known about this mind-body connection and that there was, more to our consciousness going on than we thought. But the real piece came in when back in 2008 when I learned Reiki and I started to feel these energetics coming through my hands. And I'm quite scientific. I like things to make sense in this messy world. But as soon as I could feel the Reiki flowing through my hands, I'm like, there's more to life. What? I can feel the energy. I know it's there. What's going on? And the more I connected with the energetics and I started to really dive deep into things like the law of attraction and, the nature of the body and the nature of healing and, the power of visualization and all of these things, what I started to develop was a stronger sense of intuition.
Mhm.
And I realized, and why intuition so I'm so passionate about it is because I realized that the intuition is like the bridge between these things that we're doing. So whether it is work with something like Reiki, the journey to wellness, or trying to manifest, the life of your dreams, or actually really trying to understand your purpose, really it's our in or channeling spirit and being psychic and all these wonderful things that are possible. It's this intuitive, this inner teacher, this way of interpreting through our internal senses the outside world, that for me is like the key or the bridge between us and everything else.
Well, you know what I find super interesting is years ago, we lived in Florida, we moved back, and I kept hearing Reiki, and I learned a lot about these modalities down in Florida. So I was like, all right, I'll find a Reiki practitioner. And I kept hearing no Reiki.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, I don't understand. So finally, like I realized they wanted me to get into Reiki. And since then, I've done so many, energy classes. And I feel like there is something with Reiki that just blows open your world
Yeah.
in a way that you had no idea of what was around you, at least for me. Like it
Yeah.
was huge. Like I was already on the spiritual path. I was already doing so many things. But when I became a master in Reiki and just kept going on with the energy classes, it was phenomenal. It really was.
For sure. And I think it does this. I think what I think Reiki does is we have these different cells, right? And I think naturally, or should I say ideally, I don't know, but like, or potentially, we are naturally intuitive, open, connected to the seemingly outside world, to nature, to other people. You know, we're always picking up on subtle cues, on the energetics of somebody, how other people are feeling, you know, the energy of the room. Like this is quite normal, and you see it with animals. You see it quite a lot with young children, and you see it with people that we would class as sensitive. And I think that that's kind of our normal, not normal, our natural way of being, right? But then as we get older and we navigate through the world and we try and make sense of it, and you know, the parents and all the things, we start to create these habits. We dull things down, you know, the environment, the things that we eat, the things that we believe, the things we're taught. And I think what happens when we have that attunement to Reiki is it starts to help us heal these like cultural aspects of ourselves. And then this authentic part, this dormant part, this connected part wakes up. And then suddenly it's like we've gone from FM radio to digital radio, and we have access to more, and we can learn how to tune into the frequencies we desire.
I do agree. I do agree. So much of us growing up are put into these boxes, and that inhibits us from actually connecting because we don't trust ourselves enough with the messages that we receive. So I really do agree. And I'm sure everybody out there listening has the stories of your parents, you know, you going to them with some type of situation and they're like, no, that's not possible, that can't be happening, you know, and it doesn't happened already. So now
Yeah.
we end up not trusting those signals and those messages. Now, how do you tell people to get re-engaged in their intuition? How do these messages come? Because I mean, for me, it's so many different ways.
And that's, you know, I think the first thing is the awareness, the openness to the possibility. Let's start there.
Mm.
And that's what Reiki did for me at the first. I was like, okay, maybe there's something more. And it was that curiosity of, okay, with Reiki, for me, I could feel with my hands, I could feel an energy, warm, cold, sticky, subtleties of energies. So if I can feel it, maybe I can see it. And if I can see it, maybe I can hear it. And if I can hear it, maybe I can sense it. So there's the touchy, but there's also like a sense, like an inner sense or an inner knowing. And the truth for me is this intuitive knowing, or or this ability to sense, what should we call it, the invisible world, the energetics.
Mhm.
We're going to be using our senses, but they're like an inner sense. And so we can think of the way we see, the way we feel, the way we hear, the way we touch, and the way we know, and to some degree, you know, taste, smell, that can play a part. And there are some other subtle ones that may or may not join in. So I think the first thing is like, okay, maybe what's possible. The second thing is beginning to understand where our dominant sense is, just in regular world, regular life. How do I move through the world? And our language tells us loads of this. Like we might say, oh, I see what you're saying, right? Or you might say, oh, I hear what you mean. Or you might say, yeah, I really feel that message that you sent. Yeah, we literally use our language to tell us and other people how we're interpreting the world. And if you start getting aware of that, that's going to give you a clue to your dominant sense. Does that make sense?
That really does. I never thought of that, but now I'm like thinking back because for me personally, I know I see, think, hear, smell. It's insane, the different ways I get it. But
Yeah.
as I listen to myself, that's a really great way to cue into your dominant way. That's excellent tool right there. Excellent tool.
Yes. And this is it, like, because I think we see the psychics, right? And we're like, and we hear about the clairvoyance. And clairvoyance means clear seeing. And we think that that's the best thing. Like, I guide people through meditations and journeys and things. And people will often say to me, well, if I can't see it, does that mean it's not working? And it's like, no, it just means that there's another sense. You're experiencing it in another way. And
Mhm.
so if you're asking how do we begin, begin with what's loudest. It's going to be the easiest thing, right? What's we're most attuned to. And so if that is seeing, if we move through the world mainly through our sight and how we perceive things, start there. If we're mainly somebody who talks in auditory terms, start there. If we're somebody who's very kinesthetic and we like to touchy feely, start there. Okay. And then we ask the question, right? Now, remember what I said, that we've got all of these other things going on. And the
Mhm.
truth for me, anyway, is that our intuition, which I'd like to define as our inner teacher, inner tuition, so our inner teacher, is often quite quiet. It's very kind of subtle. There's this kind of to the pointness. There's this, it's a quiet force.
Mhm.
And most of the way that our inner world works isn't very quiet.
Oh.
Mm.
You think?
The voices in our heads, the
Mhm.
critical, the what if, the fears, and the things that happen in our body. And we're like, oh my God. And, we feel all these things, and it's all really big. And it can be quite difficult to hear this if you're not attuned to it when all of this is going on, right? So, for me, the main reason why people ask me, how do I turn up my intuition in daily life is to help me make better decisions, right? To kind of help me know a bit more about what it is that's going on. And so this is going to be my advice. Ask the question, right? What do I need to know about this? Is this a good decision for me? Is this going to work? Does this align to my values? You ask the question, whatever it is. Is this house the house to move into? Is this apple the right one to eat? Like, I don't know, whatever the question is. And then listen to what's happening in your brain. Because for me, that's the loudest thing. Right? The ego mind chats away, it's got lots to say. And I just go, okay, brain, tell me what you need to tell me. And my brain will go, and then it will kind of just run out of energy. At some point, it will tell me everything it wants to tell me. And I'm like, thank you very much. And then I turn to my body, because that's normally the next loudest thing. And I'm like, hey, body, what do I need to know? Because the body, you get that gut instinct and you get that, this kind of safety response is often felt there. And so the body might be like, I don't feel safe doing this. Or yes, this feels really right for me. Or I'm scared. We're gonna die. Right. And it'll feel that, and we'll get this nerves, fear, anxieties coming, tension coming up in the body. So I give that a space to listen to, and I literally say that, body, what do I need to know? And then sometimes I get some sensations, sometimes it comes up through words, images, whatever, but I let it have its dialogue, or I have a dialogue with it. And then that kind of disperses and I'm back. And then I'm like, intuition, inner teacher. What do I need to know? And then I get normally try this. Have you thought about this? This feels good. Something really like the brain's spoken for 10 minutes, the body's kind of gone through a thing. The intuition just goes, try this. And that's it.
Mm.
So
I
you're not
love
going to hear anything of that, right?
I love it because you know what? Our minds, we are constantly on the go. We are constantly going, we're constantly moving. Too many of us are rushing through our day mindlessly
Yes.
instead of mindfully. There's a huge, huge difference. And the more mindful we are, the more we're going to hear these messages. And then
That's
our
it.
body will absolutely respond and react to everything going around us. So it's so interesting that you say that, because the two of them do work in tandem. However, for me, like my body, if I feel a lot of resistance without the talk, I know it's got a true message. Without the talk, I'm like, okay. But it's true. It's like giving yourself that space to actually just hear what's going on, what's that next step, whether it's pictures, whether it's words, whether it's colors, or I'm trying to think like different ways that we actually
Yeah.
get these messages.
You know, the kind of the next step of the questioning is, well, how do I know it's not my imagination?
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
So many people. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
And I say, what if it is?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. Like, how do we think our intuition is going to talk to us? Like, it's got to come somewhere. And our imagination is really like our inner world. And it can be our imagination. And actually, for me, spirit, energies, my intuition will talk to me through my imagination. And there can be some subtle differences. You can, especially if you start doing work, where you're, for example, channeling or working with spirit or with guides or with angels, you can begin to differentiate with that. But from this space, it's like, yes, it is your imagination. And why is your imagination bringing you that? Now you can ask that. So this, I ask my brain, I ask my body, I ask my intuition. For me, that's like the easiest thing. But you can also say, okay, wishful thinking. What do you want to tell me?
Mm.
Fear, what do you want to tell me? And you'll start, and as you start to ask these questions, you'll start to hear, feel, sense these subtle differences between what is wishful thinking, what is fear, and what is this center point, this intuition point, or for me, it's more the higher guidance point. Like I'm quite interested to know my highest guidance on something. And so I'm literally training myself to differentiate between the thousand voices. Don't lock me up. The thousand voices that happen in my brain.
Lock me up. That's awesome. That's really, yes, that is the crux of it. Don't lock me up, because we all think we are crazy when we get our intuitive hits and
Right.
guidance, especially if it does not make sense, or
Usually does.
if it's out of the norm of what you normally do. Yes, it's don't
Yeah.
lock me up. I'm crazy.
Don't lock me up. And I'm joking about it, but then I've done a lot of work on that, visibility wound, the witch wound, it's not safe. There was a time where it wasn't safe to speak about this thing.
Mhm.
And actually not far back through our ancestry, it wasn't far back. And there was a lot of fear and misunderstanding and, different like religious sects and the so much fear around it that it's kind of ingrained in us.
Yeah.
I think probably in the generation before us more so, and where the echo of that. But there's something happening, I think, in the consciousness now where we're just more open to it, and that curiosity and that trust and that, like, I don't know, it's like the dials turned up, the frequencies turned up. And so we're going, okay, maybe it's not so scary after all. And sometimes there's work that needs to be there. And yes, and I'm never gonna dismiss that. And the intuition is available to all of us. I think part of our job is to find a safe way to do that. So for some people, it's, I'm going to go out and I'm going to channel. Actually, after this call, don't knock me up. After this call, I've got my training. I've been doing star beings training. We're like channeling star beings. It's nuts. It's completely crazy. I'm like, what am I doing? But the energy and the information that comes through is like, what? And I'm curious. Like, I don't know if there's star being. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm open to the possibility. So for some people, it's massive. For some people, they'll hear it and be like, who is this crazy lady?
Yeah.
So start, and it's okay. Start with what feels safe. Just this inner guidance of, is this food good for me? Is it not? Is this color that I'm wearing today useful, or material, or whatever? Is this good for me? Because it doesn't have to be the big things. Actually, the little things are just as important.
Yeah, it really is. I remember it was several years ago. I was going to work and I heard make a right, literally make a right. And
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I know better. I'm going to make a left. I'm going to take the parkway, ba, 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 because make a right. Come on.
Yeah.
So I made that left and 5 minutes away from work. Took me 25 minutes to get there because there was a big accident. And if I would have made the right, it would have taken me 7 minutes instead. But
Yeah.
I thought I knew
Yeah.
better than hear my intuition. And that was the day, and this is going back several years ago, that I went, all right, I'm giving too much power to the upstairs and not enough power to my my heart, my soul. And that was the day that it turned around. And I really would love for you to give guidance or give some information around trusting what is actually coming through.
Yeah. And many people have that story.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's interesting because people say, oh, I don't have intuition. I don't know. Right. That's what, and people be like, no, don't know. And then when you dig into it, they're like, well, there's been times where I've, been thought I should turn right and I've turned left, or I knew not to get into that relationship, or I knew not to say that. And it's like, okay, talk to me on that. How did you know? So we're all going to experience it differently. But sometimes it can be helpful to look backwards at the times it wasn't and be like, okay, what do I mean when I said I knew I should have turned right? How did I know? And sometimes for me, when it's something like that, when I'm not kind of trying to tune in, it's just a kind of random thing that flows in. It's like, for me, I get like you could kind of call them like goosebumps. It's not as big as that, but there's a kind of goosebumpy thing going on. It's like I feel something. And actually, even when I'm talking like something like this, sometimes something comes through and I get the goosebumps. I'm like, oh yeah, that was something. And for me, that is this alignment. I'm connected into something else, and it's my body responding to this other frequency, do you want to call it? And it, or even maybe my electromagnetic field, you want to go more sciencey, is upgrading, and so my body's feeling it, right? That's what happens. And so if you're wanting to trust it, what's coming through right now is go back to the times where you didn't trust it and figure out how you knew that. Did I hear it? Did I feel it? Was it a voice? Was it a knowing? Was it in my belly? Was it in my head? Was it? And that can start giving you a clue. And then it's because also what happens, we don't use our intuition all day long, and then we're like, should I take this job and move 5 states across? I wish my intuition would tell me what to do. And so now we've got all this decision, which has a lot of logic attached, which had a lot of fear attached, which has a lot of consequences attached, which has other people's opinions. And maybe we're gonna, if we're moving, we might have our family, we might have our friends, we might have I don't know. And so now we've got these whole things, and we're wanting our intuition to just go, yeah, this is what you do. And we kind of expect it to be like super clear, like move to the house by the sea, you'll be fine. But it can't be that easy. It can. And maybe as we tune it in, it can be that easy. And maybe if you're used to doing it, maybe that's what will happen, right? So don't start with the big house move and all the things. Start with the little things. Start with what is going to give me the best journey to work today,
Hmm.
left or right? What's going to give me the best experience wearing this dress or this dress? right? And just it's inconsequential, right? There's no, and then trust, and then sometimes do the opposite. And just notice the inconsequential things. Doesn't matter where I wear this dress or this dress, but you might notice that when you go with your intuition, then somebody goes, I love your dress. Or I don't know, you make some other comments or something, something, something. There's an experience that maybe leads to something, right? Because you don't know why that is better than that. And then when you don't, it doesn't mean bad things are going to happen.
Mhm.
It's just like maybe the synchronicity isn't as strong. Maybe no one tells you how nice your I don't know. But it's just play with it. It's like it's your intuition. It's not a big scary thing. It's just your inner voice. Your brain's had a lot of airtime, has it
Oh,
not?
yes.
Right. So let's put that down for a bit and just let this thing be curious, play with it, notice, and then as you get better, like, oh, I can feel my body gets expands when I've got an intuition that's a yes. Or I can start to, I start to see this image and I get this golden light in behind my eyes, like the trees behind you, right? You can see that beautiful golden glow. Like maybe I see that in my inner vision, or maybe I don't know, or maybe I get a ringing in my ear or the goosebump things. Like I'm starting to understand. And then when the big house move comes in, then you are more adept to understanding the nuances.
Yeah. And that's really, really important. I think is just being mindful, being aware. I remember just this past week, I was like, all right, I don't know what happened. I went driving, I had to run an errand, and my mind just ran off its leash
Mhm.
and it was going. And then I hear look up.
Mhm.
And for me, a really positive sign is 444. And the license plate in front of me was 444.
Yeah.
And then I heard again, look right. And I looked right, and there was a truck with a trailer with a boat on it, and the name of the boat was Faith. So I
Mhm.
started to laugh. I go, okay, I'm out of my head now. Thank you so much. you know, but it's these moments of true clarity that give you the guidance and direction that you need.
Yes.
And if you don't pay attention, you're going to get maybe no compliments on the dress, or you may make that left and end up in 25 minutes worth of traffic
Mhm.
instead. And what happened? I was
Mhm.
late to work for 25 minutes. Oops, sorry. And nothing I could do. But, you know,
Right.
there's nothing, if not listening to it is detrimental to you. So it is definitely a learning curve. And I love how you have pretty much made it so ordinary, although it's not ordinary. It is stated in
So,
such plain terms so that we all can understand it.
yeah. Right. And for me, like I was never like before I found Reiki, like my intuition was in the first place I went. Like not I'm not sure that's entirely true, but I certainly wasn't aware of it. There was when I so I used to work in the motor industry, so I was dealing with a lot of people and there were certain things that I just found quite easy. And people be like, oh, you have a really nice way with people. And I think that was this energetic, this intuitive, like I know what to ask. I can feel how you're feeling and so I can match that. And I think naturally empathic people, we match our body language. We attune into each other, don't we? Um, so it was on, but it wasn't conscious.
Mhm.
And I think we all have that in some way. Now, when it became conscious, then it has more power and potency, because while that all sounds really nice, like I could be with my clients and this would all be amazing, we'd have this really good rapport and all of this stuff, put in the mix of the people who are all scared and in greed and fear and nuts and blah, that kind of discongruent energy, and you're in there, then naturally you're gonna you're gonna meet that, and you're gonna not going to say become that, but you're going to attune into that, and
Mhm.
it's going to feel a certain way, and then maybe it's your behaviors are going to be a certain way. And so it, for me, it come this intuition can keep you in this, the truth of who you are. And yes, sometimes you're in a situation and that's uncomfortable, and you can handle it, and you can come back, and you can clean your energy, and you can do all these things. But like there's one step further I want to give before we close, is what I've learned. This was one of the most powerful things I learned about my intuition. If you give it a job, it will
Mm.
direct you to that job, right? Now, when I was in car sales, I didn't know I gave it a job. I gave it a job, and my job, it helped me, right? But for me, one of my intentions is, I want to live my highest potential. Like, lead me into my highest potential. I want to live a life led by soul. I want to hit my purpose. Like, that's what I want to do. And so my intuition's like, oh, I hear you. I'll help. And sometimes it takes me into the magnificently messy moments. Hmm.
Yes.
However, I know that that stretch, that discomfort, that whilst it it may not always be comfortable, it's leading me to somewhere, and I can trust this voice is guiding me to that next step, stretch, that next level, that next encounter, that whatever it is that I need, so that I can keep on evolving and growing. And so if you don't have to give that statement, it's quite bold. You can be like, thank you for leading me to more joy, or more peace, or more stability, or more tranquility, or more fun, or more like whatever it is that you're hoping to harness in your life. If you kind of have this conversation with your intuition, like, hey, this is what I need right now. Thank you for helping me with that. And then you trust it, and then notice how you get more of that come into your life.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love how you stated that, because it's so easy without all the twists and the turns and the unnecessary things that we hear out there. And I find it so refreshing to have this conversation today. And I know it's about that time. So I would love for you to share where people can reach out to you. And I'll post everything also underneath, guys, so that you can also see where she's at.
Okay, so I hang out mainly on Facebook, but I'm across the social media channels at the Melissa Amos, across the channels. My website, actually, can I give you guys a free intuition enhancer? Would
Sure.
you be happy with
Yes,
that? Sure. So
absolutely. Would love that.
if you go on to melissa-amos.com/free-gift, you'll find on there a meditation with a little exercise that will help you open that intuitive third eye mind, really get you tuned into that in your way. It's not long, but it's really effective. So take a look at that. And my book is available across the Amazon platforms. If you just type in Mystic in Training, it will come up.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for another episode of Creating Lasting Change. And have a great Tuesday.